Hello and welcome to the week of webinars. I think this is part 5 from Rackspace Hosting. My name is Tom Reesing. I'm a Microsoft Certified Master in SharePoint 2007, and I work as a SharePoint consultant at Rackspace Hosting. If you've been following the other webinars this week, you may have seen Laura and Jennifer and Todd and Shane already present on exciting features we've been exploring in SharePoint 2013. And today I'm going to talk to you about a few that I've found interesting as well. I'm going to start off. You can see that I've got a virtual machine open here. I'm going to start off really with demos. I am not going to use any slides at all. I'm just going to use demos, and I want to show you what's going on. We'll also have time for Q&A. I see that we've got 27 people in the room here so far, and 44% are attentive, it says on my stat board, whatever that means. I have Shane Young as a silent partner in the background that's only going to bail me out in case of an extreme emergency. But just because we all know how much Shane loves developers, and I was partly targeting this at developers, and I want to test out the Q&A, will somebody ask me a question like, how awesome are developers? Let's see, I think I have a question. Maybe attentive window has focus. Also glad Shane is silent, someone says. Very good. All right. No, anybody else want to ask me a question like, how awesome are developers? Come on. Come on, I'm baiting you. Nobody. All right. Very good. Well, I said in my announcement to this post that I was going to talk about some of the exciting architectural changes in SharePoint 2013, and specifically for web developers. A lot of you may be SharePoint diehards. Some of you may be new to SharePoint, but I'm sure some of you have heard some of the criticisms of SharePoint in the past, especially for as far as web development's considered. Some people say that, because of the long legacy, the long history of SharePoint, that some of the HTML rendering is kind of off, or maybe it's not SEO friendly, or how do I get rid of the pages library, right? Well, SharePoint 2013 has a lot of background changes that aren't necessarily entirely obvious to the end user, but they do affect some of those criticisms we may have heard in the past. Like, for example, why does SharePoint render everything with tables? So, to just give you an example of that, I'm going to show you, I had a SharePoint 2013 VM up here. I want to go to the default publishing site for a SharePoint 2010 site. And I'm just going to search for table, right? So let's see here. How is this counting there? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Quite a few tables in the HTML there. If I switch back over to my 2013 VM and look at the same thing, I'm using the F12 developer tools, by the way, here, which if you haven't checked them out in Internet Explorer 9, they're greatly improved. I highly recommend them. So I'm searching here through the source code, and I see not a single table. How about that? Personally, I love that. I think it's really cool. If I do search for div instead, right, I see quite a lot of those. And so what that means for the web developer is we have a lot, we can feel more confident about SharePoint backing us up and being in the current generation of web development, right? It used to be back in the days of blank tags and marquee scrolls that tables were the hotness, and so were, you know, framed browsing, right? But these days, tables really should be relegated to use for displaying something tabular like data, and I don't see any of that on the page. So I'm very glad as a modern web developer to see that I have all divs showing all of my content here. So just highlight some of these. These are squarish things right here. Here's an H1. Here's a square kind of area, right? But it's a div. Here's something else, another div. All right, so good stuff. Now, if we go back over to the team site, this is, so what I'm showing you here in 2010 and in 2013 are the default publishing sites that are created. And a lot of people may also be wondering about the default team sites, so I'll just open that up in 2010. Take a look here. How many tables we've got? Quite a few. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. More than I want to count. Lots of yellow on the page. Let's see if I dock that here and do a little inspection. Again, we got that H1. Got a div. So 2010 was doing a fair job. There you see the upper menu was a table. 2010 introduced some divs. If we go over to 2013, take a look at the default team site. You may have seen some of this fanciness in previous demos. Jennifer's was really good, walking through where the edit button moved to and where site settings moved to and all that. But if I go into the developer tools here again, search for table, we see we do have one there for the get started area. Let's see what else we've got. The table inside a table for those metro icons. That's kind of surprising. There's another table there for the new documents or drag files here. That one's kind of interesting, right? Because you may have seen that one demonstrated. So that's kind of a new thing, but yet it's kind of using some old school stuff there. Let's try dragging a file in there. Do I have a file? PowerShell transcript. All right, drop that here. That's kind of cool stuff, right? And the question's been, is that Silverlight, Flash? My answer so far seems to be, I think it's HTML5, but it's HTML5 rendered in a table. So, you know, so that's interesting. The team site uses some table tags in the rendering, but one of the nice things is that the default publishing site does not. And a lot of times, if you're looking to publish a public website, you're going to be using the publishing template, and you can be fairly confident that you're not exposing any bad HTML rendering right off the bat. But what would happen if we were to go in, say, edit the page and drop in a documents web part, say. Let's take a look at that. I've got a documents library. Notice again, this is called an app for whatever reason. The documents library, at least in the preview, is called an app. So I'm going to add the documents library app. And look at that. That's kind of funny. This is not a problem with your screen. Don't try to adjust your balance. The documents web part is kind of funny there. Now, I've heard that that may be identified as a bug and already fixed possibly in future builds, but I'm sure that's not the last of those kinds of things we'll see. So again, this highlights the substantial changes to the HTML rendering and some of the challenges I'm sure the SharePoint product team has had to overcome in reconfiguring this whole page to work correctly. Let's just take a look there at this documents area and inspect it with the F12 tools. I'm just drilling in here. Again, I see divs, spans, no tables so far. Let's see if we can find one. There, finally we get to a table, and that one is the problem, right? So I'm guessing maybe if the SharePoint product team identified this web part as a problem, one of the things maybe they will do is go in and adjust that so that it is compatible with the new div and span-based rendering for the rest of the site. But right now, that's looking pretty ugly in the preview. All right. One of the other things I wanted to talk about was the new metadata-based URLs. So if I go into site settings here, and we take a look at the navigation, one of the places you see some of this effect of the new metadata management is the current navigation and the global navigation. You can switch to managed metadata navigation, right? So I've got one here set up for this term store, and it's got one link in it, and it's portal. You can see here, create friendly URLs for new pages automatically is one of the settings there under the managed navigation. So if I do that, if I go in and I add a new page, let's test that out and see if that works the way we might think it does. I'll make a new page called Tom, and it looks like find it at this is pretty friendly, right? Sorry to keep you waiting, it says. Working on it, sorry to keep you waiting. Thank you. Kind message window for your politeness. Sorry to keep you waiting is something you might see SharePoint 2013 say a lot, especially in the preview. But check that out. Look at that address, portal.contoso.com/Tom. I like it. I have a page named, and that's very friendly to me, named Tom. No more pages library, right? In 2010, you add a new page. Where does it go? In the pages library. You know, so for some of us SharePoint diehards, we've gotten used to that over the days, over the time, but a lot of people still complain about that, right? Why, they say, does SharePoint always render the URLs that way, which some people consider not friendly at all? All right, I'm just trying to take a look here and see if I can work the questions, but for some reason I'm having a hard time seeing the questions. I may not have set this up correctly. I cannot read them. Oh, I see applause. It's really hard for me to read those, though. I don't know why. Oh, here we go. Okay, good. What's the weather like in San Antonio, someone asked. It's very hot. How awesome are developers, Russell asked. Developers are awesome. Thank you for asking, Russell. I'm so appreciative of that. I hope you are a developer as well. Shane doesn't always agree with me. Clapping. Boy, that was a long time ago. Boy, I think this is neat. I'm glad I can see the questions all of a sudden. All right. But isn't the page stored in the Pages folder? Tariq asks. Yeah, well, it's a good question. Let's take a look. So again, the site settings have moved to the upper right-hand corner. Might take a little while to get used to that. That's where the view site contents is as well. And again, documents and pages are now listed under lists, libraries, and other apps. Funny kind of thing. But Pages has 3 items in it, and there's Tom, right? So tom.aspx does indeed still live in Pages. However, SharePoint has gone ahead and done that thing for us that so many people have tried to do in the past, and the SharePoint product team has said, please don't do it. They've done it the right way this time, and that is they've provided a friendly URL for that tom.aspx that lives in the Pages library. Tariq, thanks for asking. That was a great question. Glad you asked. In fact, I had not explored that myself, and now I've learned something as well. So there you have it. Tom and tom.aspx are the same thing with 2 different web addresses. I think that's really pretty cool. Let's see what other questions we might have. Oh, wait, more applause, it says. Well, that's good. I like that. All right. All right, no other questions right now. Very good. All right, I want to show you something else then. So we've talked about the HTML rendering. We talked about some of the side effects. We talked about how it works really well in publishing, and there's still some tables we're seeing in the team site, and even if we add some of the collaborative features like a document library web part into a publishing site, we've seen the effect there of the kind of old style collaboration site rendering and the new style publishing rendering, which works perfectly out of the box until you start to add things onto the page like a document web part, and then it gets kind of funny, right? So one of the other things that's interesting and Microsoft's really pushing a lot lately is this thing called the host named site collection. And if you're not familiar with it, a host name site collection can actually only be added through PowerShell. And to show you that, here I'm going to go over into Central Admin. Here's the new Central Admin. Still has the same Health Analyzer issues that I'm not going to bother addressing. My farm may not be healthy, but it seems to be working just fine for me right now. If I go to Application Management, and a lot of these things look the same as we were used to seeing them in 2010. And I go to Manage Web Applications, and you can see here I've got a list of my web applications. What I don't see is create a new web application because not logged in as the right person there. So let me log in as administrator. I'm using a very nice reference VM supplied to me by Mr. Todd Clint, and it's been set up with least privileges, and it was installed with a install account, which did not have, for some reason, permission to create new web applications. So I'm going to log in as the domain admin, which I think does. All right, let's go here again. Application management. Manage web applications, and here I go. Got my new button there, right? I don't think I saw that before. Maybe I was just looking in the wrong place. But if we go here and add a new web application, what we're really seeing on this page is what will now be called path-based site collections. So my only option here, I can put a host header. If I had something like contoso.com, I could create this new web application and it could live there at that address. But if I wanted to do something like team.contoso.com, I really don't have that option when I create my my new web application. And then wait, no, I do have that option when I create a new application. I'm talking about site collections. Sorry, wrong screen. So if I'm going to create a new site collection, and I've got my web applications list here I can choose from. I can put, oh my, Shane Stinks. That I didn't show that, did I? I can show my new. I can choose from any of the web applications that I've created, and they have those names like portal.contoso.com and demo.contoso.com. But if I want to create a new site collection, the only option I have really past that root site collection, which is already created for all of those, is to use one of these managed paths here. So I'm going to define, I can define a new managed path, and I could call it something like portal.contoso.com/demos. But then if I want to create a new site collection, I can only stick them in there under sites, right? I can't say partnerweb.contoso.com. So let's see if I can do a little bit of PowerShell on the fly and show you how you create a host named site collection. I'm going to launching the PowerShell management shell for SharePoint. There's a little bug in the preview mode. We get this error when we launch the SharePoint 2013 management shell. I think I have full confidence they'll work that out before the full release. Got a little script up here right now that I pulled off of a TechNet article for 2010, but the same code really applies now for 2013. So let's see if I can modify this on the fly here to do another demo. I'm not going to put in a secondary. Oh, can I? Yeah, I will. All right, so let's see if this works. I'm going to look up the web application. Not recognized. All right. Well, maybe I won't create a host named site collection on the fly in the end, after all. But oh, I've got more questions. and a hand raised. Let's see. When you create web app for the first time, do you need to add the domain and the DNS and flush it using the common flush DNS? Well, that's not specific to site named host named site collections, but just general DNS management. Let's see, what else did we have? There was a hand raised, but I don't. Let's see what that has to do with anything. But what I want to point out about host named, one of the things I want to point out about host named site collections is there were a number of limitations with 2010 with host named site collections. You weren't necessarily able to change some of the configuration settings for host named site collections, but now in 2013 they've really made them more full functioning, so to say. There was a blog post last year by Kirk Evans who talked about explaining what are host name site collections. Again, here's another example of how you create them only through PowerShell, not through central admin. And he talked about the difference between managed paths and host name site collections. But he also points out some of the issues, right? So in 2010, with host name site collections, you do not have the ability to provide different authentication mechanisms based on the host header, right? That changes for 2013. And he also points out that host name site collections only use one name, right? That's something that was a big limitation for some people as well. And then he also points out that there was some additional support added for host name site collections with cumulative updates. And on and on, and a discussion of some of the limitations. And so one of the reasons that we really like host name site collections is because of this, some of these application pool limits, and also some of the implications of creating a new web application for each one of those, partner web or demo.contoso.com or portal or demo. Each one of those has a number of timer jobs that goes with it, and by default gets a new application pool, and that uses a lot of memory. And we already know that SharePoint 2013 wants 24 gigabytes minimum, they're saying, for developer box, right? We don't want to go and start adding lots more application pools and using lots more memory, right? So this is something that's great for expanding that. And also I want to show you something else related to this. There's a new enterprise portal design for SharePoint. And this really highlights some of the differences between what you see in what you see Microsoft recommending for 2010 versus 2013. Let's take a look here. And you'll see now there's a corresponding poster like this for 2010 using path named site collections. And what it really comes down to in the end is all about scalability. So this is a possible design, and it's one that they're promoting, that you can get away with a huge huge farm with what they're saying is 3 application pools, right? So again, we know we're using lots of memory in 2013. Why not look for different ways we can consolidate some of these areas? There's a corresponding TechNet article explaining why they're making some of these recommendations. But you can see here now, if you were using path named, you might have www.fabricam.com/intranet, and that doesn't seem so bad until you get into /intranet/HR. But with the host name, you can see you have some naming flexibility here, make the addresses a little shorter. Or the other option would have been in 2010 to create separate web applications for each of those. And then again, we see some of that kind of web application sprawl, and we can run into some of those limitations. And by default, they've created applications, although you could pool those different applications together. So I think those were really the 3 highlights I wanted to talk about that I think were really exciting to me that I've discovered so far in 2013. The new HTML rendering, I think I was very impressed to see there were no tables in the new publishing site out of the box. Again, watch out for issues you might see related to that. I really like the new friendly URLs, and they even go a lot further than what I've shown you today, but you can start to see some of the potential there. When I created a new page, and it still lives in the pages library, but it has a friendly URL you can access it by. A lot of people have been asking for that for a long time as well. And these new options you have for host name site collections, I think again address some issues that people have been asking about for scalable web architectures for a long time as well. And I do have time for questions if there's any other questions. Unfortunately, it looks like I didn't do a very good job asking for questions because all I got were how awesome are developers, which I already said they are very awesome. We all know that. We all love web developers. Do we have any other questions from the audience at this time? I see Phil's in the audience. Phil, do you want to ask a question? $133. How terrible are admins? Hey, thank you, Russell. Well, that's nice. You know, I don't like to pick on other people so much. No questions from Phil. But Russell, I appreciate the sentiment. Yeah, developers are awesome. So if there's no further questions, I want to thank you all for joining me today. I've got some of my coworkers are doing some more sessions yet. Let's see if we've got that. Let me pull that list up. We've got a few more left this week. Awesome ones coming up. John Ross is doing What's New with Web Content Management at 2. He's going to talk even more about some of the more awesome changes they've made for web developers. I'm looking forward to that one. I'm going to attend that one as well. Tomorrow at 11 Central, all these times are Central, Jeff DeVerter is going to be talking about moving from your file share. Jonathan Mass tomorrow is talking at 1 p.m. about the app model. Very cool if you haven't checked that out yet. It's really a new direction Microsoft's promoting for SharePoint developers, moving away from the server-side API and into what they're calling the app model, not to be confused with the document library, which is also an app now. And then the last one of the week is Randy Driscoll. Last but not least, we all know Randy is the master of SharePoint branding on our team, and he's going to be talking about the branding changes. He's got a lot of great stuff to talk about tomorrow afternoon at 2. I've been doing a series of webinars on SharePoint development in the cloud, and I'll continue those. In the next couple of weeks, I should have another, you should see another webinar announcement for me about that. I'm going to install SharePoint 2013 and then developer tools, and even hopefully get all the way through to a hello world on SharePoint 2013 on a cloud server. So once again, this is Tom Reesing. signing off. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. Appreciate your attendance, and hope you're looking forward to the upcoming webinars in the series.